In a world of magic and monsters, humans have always fought against dangerous creatures, but they hated dragons the most. That's why a group of very strong adventurers managed to enter the dragon's cave. After trapping it completely, the great dragon wondered why humans wanted to kill him, even though he had never hurt them. They feared his strength and resented his existence. But his life didn't end there. The dragon was reborn as a human into a farmer's family in a small, peaceful village. His parents called him Dolan, and he grew up to be a talented young man, full of curiosity and ambition. In this world, kids are considered adults at 15, which made it easier for them to start taking responsibility. For Dolan, it meant growing up quickly and learning how to manage life independently. One morning, Dolan meets his strange and talkative brother, and they head to the nearby river to fish. His brother teases him, asking if he'll visit the swamp tomorrow. The captain of the village guard is too busy playing Red Dead 2, and Dolan's brother wonders if Dolan has any hidden skills or if he's as useless as people joke. Dolan laughs it off, but secretly wonders if he should explore the swamp to prove himself. At the river, Dolan meets a pretty girl named Mal and a blonde guy named Albert. The two are friendly and offer to explore the swamp with him. They trek together, with Dolan catching fish and skillfully hanging them to dry. As they work, he thinks about how their village is at the edge of the kingdom. Later that day, a red-haired girl calls Dolan for his magic training. She's his teacher and an experienced spellcaster. Dolan walks to her house where she praises his attack magic, saying it's some of the best she has ever seen. Winters in the village are bitterly cold, so everyone gathers food early in the season to prepare. Dolan takes some extra supplies to his parents' house. His parents welcome him with warm smiles, and his mom cooks a delicious meal, just as she always does. While walking through the swamp, Dolan notices a girl acting strangely. She seems distracted and nervous, glancing over her shoulder. Before Dolan can ask what's wrong, a huge monster suddenly appears behind her. The creature, with sharp claws and glowing eyes, charges at the girl, trying to crush her. She screams for help, and Dolan doesn't hesitate. He leaps into action, cutting off the beast's legs and grabbing the girl before fleeing to safety. The monster, made of mud and magic, regenerates its legs almost immediately. Dolan watches in shock, wondering how it appeared. He recalls a recent earthquake and suspects it might have created the creature, releasing it from deep underground. Dolan asks the girl her name, and she introduces herself as Cell. She explains that she's from a group of monsters called llamas, known for their beauty and strong magical powers. Dolan has heard of them in stories, but never thought he'd meet one in person. He asks if she wants to join him on his journey. Cell hesitates but eventually agrees, saying she'll try her best to help. However, she admits she's not sure if she can trust a human she just met. Dolan smiles warmly, reassuring her as he signals for her to follow. The beast immediately attacks and effortlessly splits the monster into two pieces. Cell feels relieved they've won, but Dolan rushes over to check if she's hurt. Cell, with her massive blush, asks Dolan if he isn't scared of her at all. Dolan replies that she isn't like the other llamas he's met. Cell is surprised to learn this man has seen other llamas, and Dolan explains that the ones he encountered before were far more aggressive and wary of humans. He then asks why she's so close to human settlements, and she explains she's recently turned 17, meaning she's now an adult and must begin a journey to find a husband. Cell mentions her poison, which most people can't tolerate, but Dolan doesn't even notice as he wonders where he needs to go next. As she excitedly eats her meal, she enjoys the soup and asks if Dolan made it. Dolan is lonely in his cave, but now things feel better because he has people he trusts. For the first time, he feels the joy of being surrounded by others who aren't afraid of him or trying to take advantage of his strength. The next morning, they both get dressed as Dolan decides not to act like a desperate incel and play hard to get. He tells Cell he's heading back to his village, while she says she'll continue her journey south to search for her husband. Dolan smiles, wondering if their paths will cross again, but decides to leave since his adventures are just beginning. As he walks away, he catches himself glancing back at Cell, thinking about how strange it feels to care about someone else's journey. The next day, Dolan and the redhead learn how to cook magical medicine from the old hag. She explains that unlike normal medicine, magical medicine requires precise care since even a slight imbalance can be life-threatening. The redhead does well and gets the recipe right on her first try, but Dolan fumbles and burns the potion. The old hag teases Dolan, saying he needs better control of his fingers to keep his girlfriend happy. He apologizes, but the redhead reassures him, saying she's sure he can make any girl happy because of his cannon. The old hag realizes what's going on, but Dolan ignores her and admits he's not good at precise tasks like this. The old hag tells him that, although he's good at offensive magic, he should practice making magical medicine at his own pace. She says there's no rush and encourages him to find an approach that works best for him. Dolan reflects on her advice and thinks about how different this life is from when he was a dragon, where brute strength was all that mattered. Later, Dolan gets invited for lunch by a family, and as they pray to the goddess Mayel, he reflects on how long it's been since he last saw her. After lunch, Dolan heads home, but a cowgirl stops him to offer her milk. Dolan knows her milk tastes amazing, but doesn't want to seem desperate. He tries to refuse, but she squeezes some milk into a cup anyway. Dolan drinks it all at once and leaves to meet Albert, who's training kids to be knights. Albert's trainees eagerly show Dolan their progress, but he isn't interested and tells them to take a break. Suddenly, Dolan senses a monster's presence in the forest. Without saying anything to Albert, he enters the forest at night to investigate. The presence feels familiar, and as he approaches, he sees the glow of a campfire. Dolan finds Cell, who was the presence he sensed, in the middle of a sponge bath. She panics, calling him a pervert, and falls back. Dolan quickly catches her to stop her from dirtying herself. She covers her chest and scolds him for staring. Dolan casually says she looks beautiful and insists her beauty won't fade just because of his gaze. Cell, embarrassed, says it's inappropriate, but Dolan, acting like a total Chad, replies that all living beings are drawn to beauty, so there's no shame in watching her. This earns him a slap, and even after covering up, Cell remains upset. Dolan, still confused about what he did wrong, changes the topic and asks why she's here. Cell sadly admits that all the men she's met during her journey are afraid of her. She looks away, her voice breaking slightly as she admits it's hard to think she might never find someone who can love her for who she is. Dolan, unsure how to respond, sits quietly for a moment before saying that maybe the right person isn't afraid of her but just hasn't shown up yet. His words make Cell pause, her expression softening slightly, though she doesn't reply. So, she came back to find Dolan. Even though she was terrified of humans, she summoned every bit of courage she had to approach them. But the moment they saw her tail, they didn't even give her a chance to explain. They turned and ran, fear etched on their faces. Dolan, on the other hand, felt incredibly fortunate to see her again. His heart lifted as he told her he had been wishing for this moment to come. Without wasting a second, a sudden idea formed in his mind, one he hoped could convince her to stay. He asked her what she thought about the idea of living with him. She blinked in surprise, her voice filled with hesitation as she asked what he meant. Dolan, with a warm smile, explained that she could live with him in the village. At first, she believed this idea was impossible. How could she, a creature feared by humans, ever fit in? Dolan reassured her gently, explaining that the village already welcomed demi-humans and beast folk, so it would not take long for her to be accepted as well. He acknowledged that, as a Lamia, people might be frightened at first, but he was certain that her kind nature and her undeniable charm would eventually win them over. The thought of living alongside humans, making friends, and being accepted filled her with joy. She agreed, her heart swelling with hope. Dolan grinned, adding that living together would not only make his life more enjoyable, but would have benefits for her as well. At first, she nervously wondered if he was hinting at nighttime activities, but Dolan quickly dispelled any misinterpretation. He had something far better in mind. With a soft smile, he explained that whenever she needed it, she could take his life energy. As he held out his hand, she hesitated before gently taking it. When he transferred a portion of his energy to her, she felt a warm, comforting sensation flow through her body. It was unlike anything she had ever felt, and she couldn't help but smile in contentment. Dolan, now pleased with her reaction, began to explain the next step of his plan. A few days later, the knight captain and his troops were perplexed to find fresh meat and fish mysteriously left at their doorstep. This had been happening for several days now, and their curiosity was growing. One red-haired soldier, more observant than the rest, noticed the trail of a giant snake leading into the forest and mentioned the lamia that had been spotted there. The captain, knowing lamias were powerful beings, immediately suspected that she might be luring them into a trap and decided to inform the village elders. Some of the villagers, however, thought the lamia could be friendly, especially since she was leaving food for them. But the captain, ever cautious, warned them not to be fooled by appearances. He suggested that a unit be formed to hunt and kill the lamia. Others disagreed, voicing concerns that it was too dangerous, and proposed that they seek backup from the capital. The village elder, however, remained calm, urging the villagers not to make rash decisions and to proceed with caution. Just then, a girl named Ari entered, holding a strange pot. She explained that she had done a fortune-telling as requested, and the elder eagerly read the results. The fortune said that the appearance of a snake was a sign of good luck, and the elder advised against harming the lamia. Nearby, Dolan was chopping wood when he overheard this. His heart swelled with joy at the news, and that evening, he rushed to the forest to tell her the good news. There was no immediate threat now, and they could finally move on to the next phase of their plan. She thanked him for suggesting the idea of leaving food offerings, which had helped shift the villagers' perception of her. Dolan smiled and assured her that everything would be fine, then proceeded to share the final step of the plan with her. The following morning, the village fighters and knights gathered for their usual training session. The captain, however, used the occasion to warn everyone about the lamia, calling her a dangerous threat. Dolan noticed that all the village leaders were present, including the revered priestess, known for her healing magic and wisdom. She was the one with the authority to judge whether the lamia was truly good or evil, and Dolan hoped that she would see Sel's true nature. Meanwhile, Sel was trembling with nervousness. Dolan had explained the plan to her. He would put himself in danger, and she would step in to save him, thus proving she wasn't a threat. As the knights prepared for the training, a soldier suddenly emerged from the forest shouting about a monster. Everyone immediately assumed it was the lamia, but Dolan realized with a sinking feeling that it was something far more dangerous. Suddenly, a massive armored bear appeared from the trees, its presence terrifying the knights. The captain quickly ordered a retreat, realizing they were no match for such a formidable creature. In the chaos, a young soldier tripped and fell, and the bear locked its eyes on him, ready to strike. Without thinking, Dolan rushed forward, determined to save the boy. He prepared to use his dragon powers to protect him, but before he could act, Sel sprang from the bushes. She positioned herself between the bear and Dolan, shielding both him and the boy. The bear's claws slashed into her, leaving deep wounds, but she stood her ground, facing the monstrous creature with an unyielding resolve. Everyone watched in stunned silence as Sel, despite her injuries, are prepared to defend them all. Using her natural hypnotic powers, she sends the bear back into the forest. It obeys and leaves, leaving everyone amazed by Sel's abilities. Dolan asks if Sel is okay, but she asks him if he's blind, pointing out the blood pouring from her wounds. At that moment, the knight captain slams his weapon on the ground and orders Sel to stay away from the villagers. Dolan himself rises into the sky and transforms into a dragon, heading toward what seems like heaven, where the beautiful goddess Miel awaits him. Aurel says the lamia seemed nice, which is why she had to save her. She also mentions that he was born a dragon in human form. Miel laughs, claiming his life force is stronger than most. Whenever he decided to live as a human, Dolan responds that when the hero's blade pierced his heart, he felt neither anger nor sadness. However, as a human, he made wonderful memories with the villagers, learning how humans live fully despite their short lives. This gave him a new perspective, making him enjoy every day. Miel smiles, commenting that lately, he seems unusually happy, possibly because of the snake. Even Sel seems happier since she arrived in the village. Dolan then returns to his human form. The next morning, Dolan is woken by Hells, who knocks before entering, as he sometimes likes to have some private time before starting his day. Sel apologizes but insists they should get up because today will be amazing. It turns out Chris, the strong and independent nightwoman, is sparring against the vice captain Mal. The entire village watches as they fight. The men argue over who is stronger and more independent, but they notice Mal isn't going all out, and even Chris picks up on it. As their swords clash again, Chris steps back and asks Mal to fight seriously. Mal pulls out a dagger, ready for the real fight. They resume, with Mal attacking Chris, who is prepared for it. Later, the group orders food, but the serving women are overly friendly with Chris, thinking she resembles a K-pop star. Albert the French warns her to avoid their advances, as Balin, an alcoholic, might be a problem. That night, Chris returns to her room, where Dolan and Sel spot her. They walk toward her, and Sel foolishly makes a comment about being a weed whacker, which annoys Chris. She invites them to her home, showing them her cozy bed filled with hay and pillows. Sel mentions how much he loves the village and hopes Chris is enjoying herself too. Balin's wife makes milk, which everyone in the village seems to enjoy. Chris is kind and lets it slide. Dolan starts talking about how life in the village is tough but honest, though the girls aren't interested and pull him into bed with them for a fun night. Balin openly challenges anyone to drink more of his wife's milk than he can. It's a strange custom, but okay. Later, Chris enters the tavern where she's warmly greeted. Balin invites her to try his wife's milk. She agrees and drinks a whole glass of freshly squeezed milk, which feels a bit awkward. Before anything else can happen, one of the guards rushes in, alerting them to go to the village gate. Upon arriving, they find themselves surrounded by guards. The outsider commissioner says that if Sel is to live as a citizen, she must go through government procedures. Dolan finds this suspicious and asks if he can accompany them to the capital. The commissioner agrees. Dolan and Cell are escorted by royal guards to the capital. Chris starts worrying and decides to visit the headmistress of her institution, hoping she can influence the government. Using magic to speed up, she heads to the capital. Along the way, she meets the elf headmistress, Olivia, who tells her that Chris has Miel's blessing. Chris insists Cell wouldn't do anything wrong, and Olivia agrees, saying the Lamia has nothing to do with the disappearances. However, Olivia suspects Kay wants Cell dead for some other reason. Chris is shocked and wonders if Dolan and Cell know what they're getting into as she prays for their safety. Part 2 will be covered soon. Make sure to subscribe to get notified.